If you've been searching for stress management tips at work, you probably came up with the solutions like just take a deep breath, just think positive, take a walk. And you probably already tried them and you're like, well, I don't know, it's not really working for me. So I'm here to tell you why they don't work and what actually to do that things would work. My name is Lolita Guarin, I'm a stress management expert. Okay, let's just start with the first one, taking deep breaths. I would say stop doing those. I mean, just that. And what does that I mean by that? It's just not enough. That is not enough for you just to take a deep breath. And first of all, let's just address something that I have an opinion about the breathing in general. You've probably seen a lot of those, oh, you just need to do the box breathing. You know, you breathe in, you hold for 4 seconds, then you breathe out, then you do not breathe in for another 8. You know what? Find your thing, okay? Find something that works for you. Because I tell you, my story is when I find out about deep breathing techniques, I was like, okay, let me try this out. I tell you, it was more stressful for me to do those techniques than actually managing my stressful situation and I was trying to apply that breathing for. And I realized if you just use your breath to help you with that, great. If you find what works for you, great. But just breathing, that's not enough. It's not enough. So why does that help more people? Because it is just an ingredient. Kind of like imagine you have a soup and it says, okay, it's a chicken soup, you have potatoes. Well, I'm sorry, but you still need more ingredients into that soup, right? Exactly. So my advice, really look into what the other ingredients that you need to do in order to make that soup. And I'm not talking about soup here, right? I'm talking about stressful situation at work that you have to tackle because, well, it's causing you stress and burnout and probably is affecting you physically already. If you're looking for help, for videos, how to help yourself in the workplace, you already acknowledge that there is something that's really bothering you. And that is what you need to address. Figure out, why am I stressed? Am I overworking? Is there a toxic person? Maybe there is a project that I don't know how to do. That's the point. Just don't look at just the potatoes. You need to figure out what is that you're really cooking. What's cooking? So you can actually change those ingredients to make a better flavor, right? Now, and the second thing is being positive. How many times did you hear the saying, just be positive? And I tell you, yes, I am very into all kinds of alternatives and energy healing and all that. But did you notice that a lot of times there's so much of this toxic positivity? Let's just face it, if you have your hand cut off or finger broken, and now somebody's gonna say, darling, just think positive. There is no way that that finger is just gonna heal of you thinking positive. Yeah, okay, we can go into metaphysics now, but really, we do not believe that from our thoughts, just like that, the finger is gonna be put together, okay? So when you tell yourself, I'm just gonna think positive, you really abandon yourself. And if you grow up in the environment where you've been abandoned emotionally and God forbid physically, you will learn how to abandon yourself too. I don't know, and it's kind of funny, like how do you can abandon yourself? Because anywhere you go, you take yourself with you, right? Well, yes and no. Because you see, we grew up in an environment where we learn how to behave. And the parents and the authorities and teachers and all the community told us the rules that we need to obey by. Because if we will not obey by those rules, hence we will be excluded from the group and hence we're going to die. Yes, I know. When you're a child, this is how catastrophic can be for you. So naturally, you will do whatever they tell you to do. And what they tell you to do is shut up and sit down and don't pay attention to your emotions. Don't pay attention to what you feel. What you want is, you're not going to get that. And the worst part, if the people in your life broke the trust in them, and then you learn that you will break your trust in yourself, you will abandon yourself because that's what you learned. So when I say don't abandon yourself in a situation, especially in a stressful situation, is acknowledging what's really happening and then allowing yourself to feel and say, you know what, I'm upset right now. And I just heard that, there will be a lot of layoffs in my company, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I am afraid that, I will be losing my job and I will not be able to pay my mortgage. And if you grew up in an environment where there was a lot of mistrust, you will be thinking the worst. And that is another thing that we do a lot. We catastrophize. And naturally, because we want to survive. So we think already what's the worst thing that can happen. So, sure, we can say, well, think positively. But how about if you will get more control in this by coming up with a plan and say, okay, let's imagine the layoff will happen, and then write it down. Okay, what's the next step that I'm going to take? Maybe update the resume, maybe call a few friends, maybe do this, maybe do that. Come up with some plan. And that's what it will help you in that situation, because if it really happens that you lose your job, at least you have a plan B. So, you know what you're going to do. And then you feel more in control of that situation and less stressed out mentally because you took control over that, right? You prepare for the worst things happen. You know what you're going to do. Also, ask other people for help. You already can start contacting other companies. You can start contacting your friends who maybe know people. You can implement few things and prepare for the worst. Hopefully, the worst will never happen, so good for you. But positively thinking and thinking, all right, I'm just going to think positively. You see, here's another problem of that. If you grow up in an environment, if, for example, I grew up with my dad being alcoholic, I had no idea what's going to happen today. I was afraid to go home after school because, one day he was fine. The next day, he was not. Another day, he doesn't even come back home. So imagine where you constantly sitting in this uncertainty and anxiety. So naturally, I had very, very thin layer of trust for my mom, for my dad, for the environment, and for everything that was happening around me. So naturally, there's no way that would be just think positively and just go to sleep. That was not really happening. Because to me, over my childhood, been proven over and over that when it's good and it's quiet and it looks like all is well, it can be very fast just collapse. So even if there was something good, I will be looking at this like, really? Are you sure about that? Because looks too good to be true. So that's the problem. When somebody tells you that you need to think positively in your workplace, in a stressful situation, you may have difficulty with this because you don't even know what the positive thinking that is. And then going back to the toxic positivity, just applying the bandage and saying, no, 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 I'm not going to look into this. That's abandoning your own feelings, your emotions, where you need to allow yourself to feel and put a label on it. Did you know that when you label an emotion, you kind of like a separating yourself from your body, from your mental state, and you say, oh, okay, it's outside of me now. I gave the name, there's a separate item, and now you can deal with that. Now you can say, okay, I'm upset, I'm stressed out, I'm disappointed, I'm angry, and then you can work with that emotion. Did you know that anger and all those very big emotions that looks like we're so afraid to feel them, they run out very fast, as long as you do not jumping from one emotion to another one, of course. But if you're in a stressful situation and you really want to think positive, how about coming up with a plan? What you're going to do is the worst thing that can happen. It will happen. What are you going to do? And then allow yourself to feel that and just say, okay, that's what it is. And better yet, how about if you will write it down? Just write all those emotions down. And what will happen in that moment? You will acknowledge how you feel. And that is how you're not abandoning yourself. You tell yourself, I will honor my feelings. I will allow myself to feel. I will allow myself to be right now who I am. And it's okay. And at the end of the practice, you will feel more in control. You will feel more like safe because now you feel like, oh, you know what? I went through all of those emotions and I didn't die. Try that. Are you ready for number 3? And that one can be a little bit interesting for some people. Like, what do you mean? That's surprising. And it has to do with the people in your environment. You probably already heard and you already know that it's very important to have people that you can connect in your workplace. Having those work friendships. And I tell you, I had a lot of work friendships because I'm very extroverted, as you can tell, and I love people. So anywhere that I will be working, in any work environment, I will always make friends. And I was always showing up for them. And obviously, I was expecting that they will show up for me because let's face it, our society is, we operate like a herd of animals. We need other people. Well, like, we don't need other people. No, we do. We do. Because even if you go on vacation and you say, wow, look at this Grand Canyon, you want to show this to someone and say, look at this, look at. But if there's nobody there, it's like, it's no fun. And I mean, I get it. If you're listening to me now, you're like, I'm fine by myself. Kudos to you. Be by yourself. What I'm saying, everyone should have what they feel like they should have and feel comfortable and happy and complete, right? But if you're in a workplace environment and you have an employee that is also your friend, your work friend, and every time this Monday comes and there's always a meeting in the break room where you run through your weekends, what did you do and where did you go and what happened, and there's a lot of going on, and who's going through what, who's divorcing, who's having a baby, who's moving out, whose neighbor's cutting the grass. And then what happens is it gets to the point that those conversations have a tendency of prolong long hours. It could be running from 10 minutes to a whole hour, sometimes even two. It depends how many people are in this conversation. And leave me a comment below and tell me, have you been in one? And then usually there is in the workplace one or two people that will come to you and they just start complaining. And there is this complaining and complaining and complain. And at the beginning you think, okay, well, they're just going through the rough patch. Will end at some point. But it doesn't. And then the next week it continues. And then you realize that, oh my gosh, that's all they do. All they do is just complain day in and out. Well, that's the problem. Because if you're really caring person, if you're a people pleaser, if you want to be there for other people, you will listen to that and you will take it in and you will take it in. So here's the deal. This is another stress in your life that you don't need. And that can hurt. And it hurt me when I realized that I need to protect my time and my energy from people that will just come in and use me as a dumping ground. Because here's the deal. For them, that's how they operate. But you cannot change them, no matter how much you care for them. And have you noticed that maybe you will start talking to them and say, hey, how about if you do this and that? And they're like, no, that's not going to work. And no, I did try that. It didn't work. Because they're not looking for solutions. They're just looking to unload this. And they're also doing this from the preservation point of view. And also, if somebody grew up in the environment where they were not seen and validated and supported and just loved for who they are, they felt like they need to be wounded in order to pay attention to. And so when we have someone who comes into your workplace and they start complaining about their life, that's the only one way how they learned to get attention. Because they think if they will be talking about the movie that they saw yesterday, then probably nobody will be interested. So they've been groomed to always be in pain, and that's the only one way how they can connect with other people. It's not your problem. It's now you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, no way. Well, you see, the thing is, this is where you can solve that issue. You can start asking that person, do you want me just to listen to you in maybe 10 minutes because we have a job to do? Or do you want me to tell you my opinion and you're looking for a solution? And if they say, just give me 10 minutes to talk, then you just allow them, give them a safe space, and they just can talk and talk and talk, but you do not take it in, because you being there for them and listening to them is already helping them. You see? You don't have to solve their problems. If, let's say, they say, well, I'm really looking for a solution, what do you think about that? Then you can give them a solution, or what your idea of that is. Also, you can tell them to go and talk with a specialist. If they're dealing with some traumatic experiences, maybe you need to go see a doctor or a therapist or whatever that is. But you have to start learning to say no. And I will leave a link and connect this video to another video that I have that I must have 3 boundaries that you need to have in the workplace to help you with that. So yes, you need to have a boundary with that coworker as well. And yes, you do love them very much. But guess what? If you will be always listening, always taking in, always being a dumping ground, and you genuinely love that person, what will happen? You will start growing resentment because you will see that nothing really happening. No matter are you showing up there for them or not, they just not changing. And that could be very hopeless because you're like, oh my gosh, it's just like something, another problem that it looks like there is no solution. That's definitely draining and stressing you out. So if you really want to show up for them, just give them whatever they want that moment, as of maybe for 10-15 minutes, but you need to have a time break. You cannot talk for hours there. And then on top of this, if you're in the workplace, somebody else can say, well, how come are they talking there for hours and I have to work and they get paid the same thing? You see, it doesn't go well in the workplace when somebody's talking or just browsing on their phone, right? So think about that. And you can help them as much as you can, and you're doing your best. You cannot change other people and be happy and loving and whatever, and they still be in the place if they choose to be. So think about boundaries. You don't have to be so rough, and you don't need to be, looking that you have no heart, but you can say, hey, how about we can talk for 15 minutes, but then I need to go. That's it. Okay. Another thing that a lot of people stressing a lot and is totally burnout and probably not going to be nothing new that you heard is working overtime. We need to stop working overtime. And I have a short in the video about that. And again, this is the boundaries video that you need to check it out again for more into detail. But when you work overtime, you're not getting paid, it's even worse, or even getting paid, you are draining yourself more because you do not give yourself permission to be enough. And that is an issue that really comes, I believe, from our childhood, where we learned that we need to be useful. And we're afraid that they will be let go of. Because you see, if you grew up in an environment where they told you to shut up and sit down, they were not paying attention to your needs, where, whatever you feel doesn't really matter. You learn that you need to be useful. You need to be good around the house. You need to be a good student. You need to be there for everybody. You need to be a people pleaser. You need to be productive. You need to be winning something. And then what happens? You take this mentality in the workplace. So then you continue overtime. You being very, like the highest achiever. And you think that this will lead to some sort of award, and also you will be seen and loved. But it doesn't work that way in the workplace. It doesn't, because it's just an entity. It's all about the money. Work is all about the money for the person who owns the business. And more than that, if you came to work and they told you this is your responsibilities, and you work 40 hours a week, for example, and then you work more hours, does that say that you cannot perform well because you need to work more? But no, that's not the case. You're probably working overtime because you're taking up more work, because you're afraid if they give you more to do and you will say no to that, they will kick you out. But how about those people who are still sitting in the workplace and they're barely doing anything, because there's always a person that barely does anything and they're still there? I know, because that's your wounds talking. You are afraid you have a fear of abandonment, and you're afraid to be kicked out of the work. So how about we start working whatever we be paid for and what the expectations were from the beginning? Because if you will start working overtime, the employee can say, they're not that good of an employee because I hired them for 40 hours and they need 50. What's wrong with them? And in any workplace, money speaks first. So they will put more work on you because you can handle it. Stop working overtime. Start taking your breaks, your lunch breaks, your weekends, and do not work from home, for God's sake. What is this? Of course, if your work is at home that you can do, great, but I'm talking about weekends and after work hours. That should be a very serious boundary. And you start implementing small ones, but if you get in the workplace and you start a new job, have your boundaries set immediately so you don't have to deal with that. Okay, so then what else can we do? There are some tools that also help in any situation, because here is the thing that we came to the point of: you can fix situations sometimes, you can do stress management tips, you can do boundaries, you can stop those toxic people, and you're still feeling drained. That's the time when you need to leave workplace. Just plainly. Find another job. That ran out its course. It's time to cut your losses. And that's how the growth happens. Because if you will not advance somewhere, then you can get resentment. And obviously, that's why you're stressing out in the workplace, because probably there's some things that just don't work anymore. So, I recommend you to make a list of things and how you can solve your stress right now in the workplace. Identify what it really is that you're stressing about. Then start taking some steps. Maybe there's something that you can do. You can ask for help. I recommend you to watch my videos about the boundary setting in the workplace. And also, I am giving you an access to my Calm Process course that explains step in step how, like videos and timesheets, worksheets, how to go through the whole process in any stressful situation, not only in the workplace, that can help you arrive to the place where you feel calm, you feel in control, and you know what to do. And that's where the resentment and the burnout will just start lowering and lowering itself to the point that you know that, oh yeah, I can trust myself. Because when you know that you can trust yourself and you can trust whatever happens that you will handle it, that's when the stress level goes down. And if you need help, we highly recommend you to hire me for your coach. Stress management sessions are available for 15, 30, or even the whole hour. And that is in my website, beamazingyou.com.